I never got to bat in the major leagues. I'd have liked to have that chance, just once. To stare down a big league pitcher. Make him think you know something he doesn't. Chance to squint at a sky so blue that it hurts your eyes just to look at. To feel the tingle in your arm as you connect with the ball. To run the bases, stretch a double into a triple, and flop face first. Wrap your arms around the bag. That's my wish, Rick and Silver.
Hey everyone, welcome to Big League Dreaming, the podcast, a show about pursuing your dreams and taking it to the next level. I'm Zane Gonzalez, the dad, and if you followed the podcast before, you know it's a dad and his three sons kind of just talking about baseball because we eat, dream, sleep it every single day. Maybe not as much as we used to back in the day when I was coaching and they were playing, but I'll tell you what, each one of them still has a passion for the great game of baseball, and it doesn't matter where they're at. They're still talking baseball every single day. And that's what this podcast is all about. We bring on guests and we talk to them about how they achieve their dreams and how they can take it to the next level. We have a great guest, which we will introduce in a second. But right now you can see I'm in Ty's studio. Ty is the middle one, son number two. He is the Mets fan and a lot to cheer about for the Mets right now.
Yeah.
I'm the Tigers fan. Not a lot to cheer about there, especially with news today about Miggy maybe not coming back for his 2023 season, his final year of the contract. So that'll be a bummer if he cannot play next year. But I can't wait to talk to our guest coming up here about Spencer Torkelson. He might have a few things to say about Torque. And son number one is also joining us, Zak Gonzalez. How you doing, Zak?
Doing good, hanging in there.
Oh man, great to see you. Son number one, based in Charlotte, North Carolina. We're based in Grand Rapids. And Zak is the Mariners fan. And son number three is Zane Gonzalez. He's based in South Bend, Indiana. He is the Red Sox fan. He's also still in baseball. He is coaching at Indiana University of South Bend as the pitching coach and recruiting coordinator. Zak, son number one, keeps busy with the Charlotte Knights there in Charlotte, doing some TrackMan and doing, well, I guess you're not doing TrackMan or video. You're doing more pitch clock right now.
Yeah, pitch clock and a little bit of scoreboard too.
Yeah, that's what you're doing these days. And I keep track of baseball just because, you know, that's just what I do. So joining us on the podcast is someone that Zak lined up. Zak, why don't you introduce our guest here?
Yeah, so we're very fortunate to have from Perfect Game, Brian Sakowski with us. Man, have you really been there for 9 years now, Brian?
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's wild to think about you and I pound and pad 9 years ago and nowhere Atlanta. Like, here we are all these years later. You're a father. Where'd that come from?
It happens. Trust me.
Yeah. But no, about 10 years now. It'll be 10 years in the spring. Yep.
Wow. Yeah, we appreciate you taking the time. We're looking forward to hearing your backstory. And I feel like a lot of people don't really know what Perfect Game is. Like, they've heard of it. They've seen the logo. Sometimes they see it on MLB Network, but they're kind of like, what is that stuff, right? I bet you get that question a lot.
Yeah.
What do you tell people?
So I look at it as we are more or less a scouting company that puts on our own events, is kind of the best way to put it. But like it's mostly an event-based company. We run tournaments for all ages of baseball players all across the country. We run showcases for the older players, starting at 13 or 14, all across the country. We have an entire 30-plus person scouting department. Our goal is player identification, followed immediately by player promotion. So what we want to identify the best guys. We want to see the dudes. We want to go scout them. But then when we do find them, we don't keep that to ourselves. We put it all over Twitter because we want that kid to get the attention he deserves, whether that's exposure to a school to be recruited or if it's a player who's going to get $7 million in the draft, like anywhere in between. We think all those players deserve promotion for their skills, and that's what we provide.
No, Brian, a Perfect Game, I mean, it really is, it's a service, really. I mean, when you really think about it, because it really serves the player, the parent, those college coaches that are looking for extra help when they're recruiting. And it also helps the major league level because, you know, they have their scouts obviously checking out players, but if Perfect Game's also done some scouting reports. And, you know, let's face it, in 2022, it's all about information and numbers, you know, and what are the comps? I mean, right, it's all this lingo going on. There's more knowledge and information than ever before. I mean, even, you know, you've been with Perfect Game for what, 9-10 years now. you've probably noticed the big difference.
Oh yeah, it's the difference between like what we had available to us even 10 years ago when I started. And Zach will remember too. It was we were told to tweet, tweet about guys you see at your field. But Twitter wouldn't let us put video out yet. Like that was how long ago that was. If you can imagine Twitter where it couldn't host video. That was from there to there, blah, blah, blah. And like you said, it's sometimes we have 6 years of looks at these players. Sometimes these guys started coming to PG events when they were 11, and not that they were getting scouted at 11, but like, all right, now we have this history of data. This is how long this dude's performed in PG events. We started scouting him when he was 13 or 14. Now he's 18 and he's going to be an All-American, like whatever. But just the history that we have with these guys, like the data that you talked about, the numbers that we've collected over the years, et cetera, it all plays, I think, a big role in the whole telling the story of a player, like evaluatively. And that, like you said, benefits big league teams because, hey, we've been watching these dudes longer. Really?
Yeah. Yeah. You've been putting in the work. Hey, before we get to your background, because I want to hear your story, because I understand you and I are both, we both fire up. So there
That's
you go.
right.
We'll talk about that in a second. But Zach, did you ever play a perfect game like when you were playing in your playing days?
No, I never played there because, being travel ball in Michigan in, early 2000s, perfect game wasn't what it is today. And it was pretty rare for those northern schools to make their way down to the South to go to the perfect game events.
Right. Right.
So I never played in one, but when I was coaching travel ball in Myrtle Beach, my team went out to multiple events, which is where I met Brian, got to see him out at middle of nowhere, Mount Pisgah High School in Atlanta area in Georgia. And now they have the Lake Point facility. So I haven't played, but I've been around it, coached it, and I've actually even helped out one summer or two for perfect game for Brian and those guys on the iPad. So a lot of fun.
A lot of fun. Ty, did you ever play in a perfect game?
No, I don't even remember it honestly being around when I was playing, and if it was, I didn't know about it.
Right. Well, I know that the young son number 3, Zane, has played it because I remember coaching. I think we were down in Atlanta, and what I remember the most, Brian, about it is that here we are, a team from the north, and I'm sure you have the perspective of northern teams coming down to play down in the south, but it gave our players a realistic view of what baseball was like on a national level, right? Mm-hmm. And on any travel team, even if you're from the South, you have players that think they're good and they don't realize, how good they are, or they're not as good as they thought they were. I think high school baseball, and you probably would agree with your years at Orchard Lake St. Mary's as well, is that, high school ball is one thing, and you may be the best player in your team or the best player in your region, but when you start stacking up the best player in the state of Michigan or the Midwest, and then you go down in the South, you clearly have to see, here's the level of work I need to put in to get to that level.
Yeah, absolutely. It can be a culture shock, a rude awakening, however you want to phrase it. I think you summed it up perfectly. There's a lot of dudes who are the best players on their high school team, and that's fine. If that's all they know, if that's how insulated their baseball experience has been, like maybe they've been told they're Derek Jeter their whole life or something, But then once you go play the big boys, once you go play the players that are getting looked at to be paid to play this game, like you learn real quick if you're good or not. And it's something we've seen in the last several years is teams from Michigan specifically doing better in our events. And the quality of baseball in the state has never been as good as it is right now, in terms of talent, in terms of the abilities we now have to develop these players. But yeah, so either way, a lot of these northern boys spend the first part of June or whatever it is after their high school seasons end, losing for a week in the South and like reacclimating. Like, okay, oh yeah, that's how good everyone is down here. Okay, all right, we're good. We're locked back in, and then they're good for the rest of the year. But yeah, it's always an interesting dynamic.
So Brian, why don't you take us into your background? So are you from Michigan originally then?
Mm-hmm. I'm a downriver guy. I grew up in Southgate. Spent a lot of years in Dearborn. My mom still lives in Dearborn. I went to Gabriel Richard High School in Riverview, graduated an indeterminate amount of time ago. We don't have to talk about that, but
class of what? You got to tell me now.
Class of 08. Of 08. Went right to Mount Pleasant. I was a proud Chippewa for more than 4 years, but again, that's all right. A lot of people take 4 or 5 years to graduate. Got my degree in, I don't really entirely remember, political science or something.
But you spent some time with the baseball team, though, right?
I did. Yeah, I was lucky enough to be one of the undergrad assistants for the CMU baseball program for a couple seasons, 2012 and 2013. Kind of at the time, my plan in school was to get a teaching degree and go teach high school history or whatever it was, and coach baseball, coach football, do that whole deal. Like, that was what I wanted. Kind of inch towards like, well, how come I can't just coach for a living and not have to teach? Like, why can't I do that? Why don't we live in Texas? So that took me down the wanting to figure out how to do it in college path. And I talked to the old CMU coach, Steve Jacksa. I took his Foundations of Baseball class, or whatever the physical education course that was offered. Followed him into his office one day after class and basically was like, how do I become you? Because I didn't know. I wasn't playing college baseball. I had didn't have that like built-in advantage of being in that world. He offered me a spot on the CMU team as like a kind of do everything. I like help the camera guys on some days, and on other days I caught bullpens, and I would fill out scouting reports, and I would hit fungos. So it kind of whatever they needed type of thing. Got to see how college baseball works from the inside, got to see the process and the preparation and all that, and kind of honestly fell in love with it. But then fast forward, I'm done with college. I figured I'd probably be best served getting good at something if I was ever going to be a college baseball coach. And with no playing experience in like a year and a half of undergrad assistant experience, like I had no kind of resume. So got into scouting. Got into going to West Michigan Whitecaps games and blogging about Tigers prospects like I knew what I was talking about when I didn't. But I fell in love with that, like fell in love with the procedure of scouting, like fell in love with that concept or whatever, like the lonely dude out on the highway just going to games and finding players like that, the romanticism of it. Like I fell in love hook, line, and sinker with the whole thing. Got a part-time job with Perfect Game, did that for a couple summers, worked my way into a full-time role. Here we are, however many years later that is. I'm the national crosschecker at Perfect Game, so I've seen some success in my career, but it's been a wild ride one way or another for sure.
Well, I read one of your blogs from 2012 where you did a mid-season report on the Tigers, and you said, you know what, they're 3 games out of first place, but I think they're the best. I think they're going to win their division. I don't think they're the best team in the American League, but hey, you know what? They're going to be okay.
2012, was I right? Yeah, they won.
You were right. They won their division. Yeah, they went to the World Series. They were the best team in the American League that year.
They should have won the World Series. They were better than the Giants. Whatever. Anyways, I'm over it. I'm not hurt anymore.
No, but I know that you have this passion for the game, and clearly, but you never had aspirations of playing in the major leagues.
Yeah, I mean, until I realized I wasn't that good. I mean, you know, Derek Jeter was my favorite player growing up. You know, growing up in the late 90s, early 2000s, the Tigers sucked. So Jeter was the guy. He was from Michigan. He played my favorite position. He played for the team that was always on TV. Like, Jeter was my guy. The Yankees were my team. I still ask for forgiveness for that. But yeah, I wanted to play shortstop for the Yankees. I just assumed that I was going to, you know, once Jeter retired, here I come. I'm ready, Derek. I'll take over. I'll play short. I'll even wear number 2 if you want. You know, so yeah, I had those aspirations until I was probably like 12 or 13. And then it was like, all right, well, you're having fun, but you're not that good.
Yeah.
So, you know,
so you were evaluating yourself back when you were 12 and 13.
Came down to earth a little bit like that. Yeah, but it was, I mean, I did, to answer your question, I absolutely did. It was just once I hit like 13, 14, high school, whatever, it was like, all right, I can still have major league dreams, but it's going to be in a different job. So,
Todd, do you have any questions for Brian?
Yeah, so you can have other major league dreams. So, like, kind of like, what are your major league dreams right now? I guess, and you're at this point in your career, like, what's the next steps for you?
I still think I think the same dream I had when I walked into Steve Jackson's office it holds true. I think um, that's the thing I want to cross off still is coach college baseball at a high level. I've gotten okay at evaluating in the last decade or so. So I think that I'll have an opportunity maybe to enter in as like a recruiting coordinator type of deal. And obviously, you guys know the job. You have a son and a brother doing it. Except I'm more of a hitting guy. But yeah, I think that's still the goal. I don't chase necessarily the same working for a big league team dreams. I don't, like there's opportunities that are potential whatever that I would consider, but like just in general, that doesn't really, it's not all that attractive to me anymore. I like my thoughts being able to be public, honestly, and whether that's an ego thing or not. I like, when I see a guy and I write a report on him, I can click tweet too. I don't have to hide that from the world. But yeah, to answer your question, I think I still, recruiting coordinator at University of Blank is like still the pipe dream that I'm chasing.
Zach, follow up there.
Yeah, I mean, you've done a lot of different things, right? You've coached at a very high level, one of the best high schools in the whole country, Orchard Lake St. Mary's. You've done a bunch of different scouting stuff. I guess, what are some of like your most favorite aspects of the different jobs that you've had? Like, I've seen you interviewed on MLB Network. I've seen, all these different events you get to go to. Is it a certain level that you like to scout the most? Is it JUCO guys? Is it, high school guys? What's some of your favorite parts of the jobs that you do?
I'm obsessed with the draft, period. So I love, like, my favorite scouting is it's April 15th and it's still cold in Ohio and Michigan or wherever I am. But you know what? Hey, this kid from Chicago is going to go in the first round or whatever. So I got to get in the car, drive wherever I got to go. There's no like, you're going to see one dude. Like, that's it. You're going to see 1.5 hours or whatever of a guy playing baseball. There's no 18-hour tournament day. There's no showcase where you got to scout every player. It's like, all right, I need to go figure out where I'm going to put this dude on the draft board and, like, hypothetically how much money I would give this guy. So I love that. I love chasing the draft more than I love most things. I'm able to kind of keep that energy into the summer as my role with Perfect Game has expanded and as we've added and expanded and blah, 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 blah. I've been kind of able to carve out where most of the time I go to where I want. Obviously, Zach, I'm on the road all the time. So it's not like there's a lack of travel anymore, but now I kind of get to pick a little bit more than I used to. So love college baseball, except for on the West Coast. It's so boring. It's so boring. How many times can we try and bunt and hit the ball the opposite way? It's boring, guys. Hit a ball hard. That's just a personal thing. But it's, Zach, to answer your question, man, it's chasing the draft. I love JUCO baseball. I love being able to shine a spotlight on that just because it's a level that's underrepresented. And then I had the time of my life coaching at St. Mary's. If I didn't move to Ohio, I would still be there. But chose the fiance over the coaching job on the side. I do like her quite a bit too. So.
we hear she's a baseball fan, so congratulations.
She is. She was, and then she got with me, and now she can't stand it. So
yeah, there are some disadvantages to being married to someone that follows baseball and will be willing to drive 4 hours away to go see an 1.5-hour games.
That's right. Yeah.
No question about that. Hey, my question for you would be about the draft, and let's talk a little bit about that. Spencer Torkelson, is this going to be a big bust for the Tigers?
I mean, I hope not. I just, for me, there's a track record of him struggling right away at whatever new level he achieves. Now, the problem is that he's never struggled for so long as he has in his adjustment to the big leagues. Of course, that's an issue, but he was like bad in Erie bad at big league spring training a year ago, and then was bad at West Michigan to start and then turned it on, and then was bad at Erie to start and turned it on, and then was bad at Toledo to start. So I'm like hopeful that there's some level of just reacclimation to it. But he's a guy that has always been there. So I don't I think he needs to get back into his zone hitting. I think he was always really, really good at eliminating locations of the zone to swing at, not even pitch types. Not, all right, we're taking sliders. It's no, we're not swinging on the outer third because I can't cover the plate or whatever it is. And you eliminate those pitches from what you have to think about at the plate. And he was always really good at like, all right, anything inner third, anything down the middle, anything up above the belt. Like that's where I'm taking my ace swing because I know I can get there. I'm not worried about anything else. He was always so good with his plan that I think he's just hope a month in Toledo does well for him and he comes back and we're talking about a dude again next year.
Well, I know he struggled in Toledo right now, and but that's what he got out of his plan. I watched him a lot in West Michigan when he played here and followed him every level. And the last couple of months with the Tigers, he was swinging at pitches that were way out of the zone, and you're like, what is he doing? He's lost his plan. So I'm a little concerned because his bat, I mean, we can get to the technical part of hitting. His bat does not stay in the zone very long, so he's got to be right on it, and he's not right on it. And so maybe it's just an adjustment. I don't know, but well, I think it's wait and see. Backing up to the 2021 draft real quick, the Tigers also took a high school pitcher, Jackson Jobe, who has struggled. He's in Lakeland. He's not doing the best, and they passed up some really good players to take this guy.
Yeah, Marcelo Meyer is the one that jumps out the most. That was probably going to hurt me for a long time personally. So there's two sides to this. Number one, Jackson Jobe has like the best stuff I've ever seen from a high school player, like any of them. I've done this for 10 years or whatever. Pick a high school guy of the last 10 drafts. Jobe's stuff is the best, period. However, still extremely raw when it comes to pitching. And this, I just talked about this with Dan Hasty a month ago on the Road to Detroit podcast. It's a dude's still learning how to like hold runners and like when he's got to go from the stretch and how to work with a catcher when there's a dude who's 26 on base stealing your signs, and all the timing of it. Everybody's way faster at the major league level, or excuse me, in the minor leagues. And even if they're not the best hitters in the world, they're still way better than anybody he faced in high school. So it's such an adjustment period, but it is important to remember how good he is, like how talented he is. Now it may take a while. Marcelo Meyer's got a 900 OPS and A-ball or something. Again, gonna hurt me for a while. But I don't want to I don't think there's necessarily anything to worry about with Jobe. If a year from now he still has like a 5 ERA in Lakeland, now we're sounding alarms. But right now it's just like he's still learning the finer points of like, okay, I can't just hold for 2 beats and go because pro hitters pick that up. And so it's just been an adjustment period learning how to be a pitcher full time, because this dude was a shortstop 2 years ago. He was a shortstop. So it just I'm not that worried. If you look at the stuff and the StatCast and the data and all that, like his stuff is still unreal. Watch videos, man. These are 22-year-old pro catchers who are missing his slider by like that much because whoa, how did it move that much? So it's still just really, you can still be excited about Jobe, is my opinion, but hard to pass on Meyer. That's all. That's all. It's hard to pass on Meyer. That's all.
Well, not to monopolize the conversation, I think the Tigers kind of made up for last year, this year, taking Jace Young and Peyton Graham. Because of that, I think they went with position players as opposed to pitchers. So that's a different story. Zach or Ty, you have anything you want to add to the conversation? Because I don't want to monopolize draft. I can talk draft all the time.
Yeah, one thing I want to ask is like, as a national crosschecker, is it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, explain a little bit more about that, because I don't know too much about that. Like, what does your job entail? Like, how often do you travel? How far do you travel? Like, just a little bit more about that.
So major league scouting staffs we've kind of mirrored their organization, and that's just kind of what my title means. But it's kind of goes like scouting director, national crosschecker, regional crosschecker, area scout in general. There's more in others, but like that's kind of in general like the hierarchy of a scouting department. So we have 30, 35, something like that scouts. 25 of them are area scouts. Another handful are regional cross checkers. Vinny Servino and I, my coworker, are national cross checkers, and then Jared Goodwin is our scouting director. And there's other guys with different jobs and different roles, but that's kind of the quick little summation of how it's organized. My role is mostly upper class focused. Like I talked about, you won't find me at many 14U events. I just honestly don't care.
They're 14.
Yeah, great. Yeah, like that's where I'm at. Like, but yeah, there's some lack of control I have as far as just going to whichever events need the most help, which I'm always willing to do. I'd say I spend 170, 180 days a year on the road, roughly half the year, something like that. It goes in spurts. Obviously, right now is a busy time because it's summer, but yeah, mostly I'm upper class focused. I'm trying my best to see the guys who are going to be drafted as much as humanly possible. I will shortly here jump into more of a JUCO role. I run all of our JUCO coverage at PG, and as a part of that, we have different JUCO events that we do now. So I'll be going to those in the fall and in the spring. Yeah, I mean, it's a decent balance now of like going to events that pay the bills and like going to events I want to go to. So it's a good balance now, whereas it used to be very unbalanced. But that's what happens when you're growing a company, right? Like PG's grown huge, even beyond whatever I thought it was. But so yeah, I hope that wasn't too long-winded. I really don't know. I'm on the road a lot. I watch players.
What does draft day look like for you? I know it's like a big day, Christmas for you. Like, where are you at? Who's around you? Are you by yourself on your laptop, just like crushing sun drops, or what?
It depends. I have covered the draft from an airplane. I have covered the draft from a hotel. I have covered the draft from my home. It depends. It really depends because they keep moving the date. So who even knows when it is anymore? But usually it's like a frantic burst of energy from like 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. while Vinny and I finalize our last mock draft that we're going to put out. It's talking to scouting directors and execs and whoever, and agents sometimes, even though I don't really like that, to get as much info as we can to put out our best guess. And then from there, it's rapid fire. This is who so-and-so is going to take. What do you think? It's teams, like they look at me kind of as a switchboard, an informational switchboard, I guess. Like, hey man, this is the info I got. I'm willing to trade it for some info on this team, like that sort of thing. Everybody's trying to sort of guess and choose who's going to be taken and how much money that deal is going to be for, and who might be sliding and who's trying to get them to slide so they can pay them in the third. Or Texas Rangers got Brock Porter in the fourth this year. Speaking of Michigan guys, but like that might have been the thing I got the most texts about on draft night was, is Brock not signing? Like, give it a second, guys. Just wait till the draft's over. I promise it'll make sense. Yeah, that's it's a frantic day, but it's like the most fun day of the year for sure.
Brian, I'm really curious. I mean, we really appreciate your time here, and thank you for joining us on Big League Dreaming, the podcast. Let's get to some advice. And you see a lot of baseball. You see a lot of young kids. You talked about you're not scouting a lot of 14-year-olds because they're 14, but when you do reach that age where the player has decided they really want to get to that national stage, they want to be drafted, they want to be in the top 5 rounds, or they just want to get drafted. What do you see from these young players? What makes some stand out over others? Because I've seen players with lesser talent achieve and keep working their way up. I've seen players with incredible talent that just don't have the maturation. They can't adjust. So what are some of the constants? What are some of the traits you see of successful players?
Well, usually the best players are bigger and stronger than everybody else. Like it's not a hard and fast rule. Jose Altuve exists. Like I understand that, but most of the time they're bigger and stronger than everybody else. So for high school guys, it's like, if you're not like crushing the weight room, I don't think you care that much. If you're not like crushing your diet, I don't think you care that much, because those are two things that you can control like immediately. You can't necessarily control how quick your velocity comes or how well you develop a slider or how well you have bat to ball skills, or like any of these definable baseball traits. If you're not working in the weight room and trying to get stronger and putting on good weight and getting into your body, then I don't think you're serious. Period. I just don't think you are. Other than that, it's don't be so concerned with showcasing yourself until you have something to showcase. We see a ton of players who we shouldn't, quite frankly. There's really no value in coming to a showcase to be evaluated and picked apart if you don't have anything to showcase. So get good, get really good, get a couple tools, like get your arm strength up, start running, hit for some power and BP, something. A showcase is to find tools. We're not there to necessarily find dudes. We're there to find tools that may project into dudes. And then after that, once you get good at showcasing, don't forget that you still have to play the game. There's a lot of dudes who can run and throw hard into a screen. Well, you put them on a mound and there's a hitter in there, and all of a sudden it looks like they've never played before. Same deal with hitters. There's a lot of dudes who can crush BP, and as soon as someone throws one that moves, they're screwed. It's the advent of the showcase baseball. I think it's important because this is how we see the most guys possible at in the most smallest amount of time. It's better for the kids in terms of like, all right, we got 300 dudes with tweets and data and metrics on the website today, player exposure, player whatever. But then, college coaches aren't going to commit you off of a showcase look. They're going to come watch you playing a game. And if you're not good at actually playing the game too, with the tools that you showed up in the showcase, you got to have both. So I guess my advice is like, you're not as good as you think you are yet. And that's okay. I'm not even being, like mean. That's just, you're not that good yet. Whoever's listening to this, you're not that good yet. So keep working, keep going to the weight, rushing 4,000 calories a day and getting stronger. And like, that's, there's always someone bigger and better than you. I can remember my father telling me that when I was like 8 or 9 years old, and I'm not a pro athlete. I didn't play college baseball. It's true in any facet of life. There's always someone bigger and stronger than you. So take that mentality.
Great advice. Yeah, I mean that's perfect. I think people need to hear that more than ever right now. Hey, I know one of the things that we're talking about here, Ty and I have been talking about, as well as with Zach, about we want to do another ranking of baseball movies. We haven't gotten around to it yet. Why don't you give us maybe one of your top 1 or 2 baseball movies that you like?
Number 1 is Bull Durham. I will watch it on any plane that it's on. I've watched it like 8 times this year on Delta flights because it's there. Bull Durham 1, and like my sneaky 2 is For Love of the Game, and part of that has to do with the fact that it was a Tiger. If it would have been a Mariner, I probably wouldn't care that much or whatever, But like, but man, Billy Chappell in the Tigers uniform, like combining emo love story with the greatest game on earth, and Vin Scully's in it, R.I.P. Yeah, that's way up there for me too. Good
call. Those 2 great movies. I love the Mariners jab too. The Mariners jab is great. That's and
next time I come on, it'll be a Red Sox jab. Don't worry, I'll even it out.
It's all baseball banter. It's how we talk.
You got to give the Mariners some love though, because I mean, you look at the Tigers, what they're trying to do and rebuild. The Mariners are a step ahead.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. A lot of teams are.
That's a good Tigers jab.
They've earned it.
Yeah. All right, Zach, you want to close it out for us?
Yeah, just want to thank everyone for listening. Thank you to Brian for taking a little bit of time out of your very busy schedule. I know we've been trying to connect for some time now. So summertime too. So really appreciate you being on.
Absolutely. I appreciate you guys having me and being patient with me as I kept not being able to get to this, but I appreciate you sticking with me. And I had a great time. Thank you for having me.
Brian, I know you have I think you have a podcast, right? And I also have a Twitter. So why don't you give us some information how we can find you?
You could follow me on Twitter at B_Sakowski_PG. My podcast is called Cold Weather Bats. It is, you can follow that on Twitter too, at Cold Weather Bats. It is a podcast that started as Michigan amateur baseball. So we wanted to include college and all that. And now it's pretty much a podcast about Michigan high school baseball, which is cool, though. I'm happy with the concept we went with. We had a great time. We Brandon, Justice, and I do it. We're those Michigan fans out there may know Brandon from his work writing about Michigan. But anyways, we do this podcast called Cold Weather Bats. It's about Michigan high school baseball, basically. We rank the high school teams week to week. We do a top 25. And basically just the Michigan baseball is really good, and we think more people should be talking about it. It's kind of basically what it is. So that's all.
Thanks again. Ty, where can people get more information about our podcast?
Yeah, if you want to get more info on our podcast, you can follow us on TikTok at Big League Dreaming. You can follow us on Twitter at BLD Pod. That's at BLD POD. And you can shoot us an email, bigleaguedreaming@gmail.com.
See you guys.